As soon as Yoonsi left the room, Wayan sat on the bed. Taehyung looked at her and again went out. She thought he was still angry with her and would never talk to her. That's why he left the room. Her eyes got teary with this thought, but soon as her thought came to stop and she listened to the voice of the door being closed, she looked up and found him who had locked the door, and he has a plate of food in his hand. He came and sat on the bed in front of her and said, "You hadn't eaten anything since last night. Come have food." "But I am not hungry," she said while looking at her lap. He signed and put the plate beside her and held her leg and pulled her toward him. Because of the sudden pull, she got settled, but he held her securely and made her sit on his lap and circle his one arm around her. With one other arm, he combined her hair, which was falling on her face. All the while, she was looking at him without saying anything. He dragged plate near her and said, "I didn't need to ask you to know if you were hungry or not. And now I know that my baby is hungry. We have a lot of talk and discuss, but before that you need to have food because I don't want this affect your health. You are already mentally upset. I don't want anything to add, okay?" She just nodded at him. He took a bite and feed her, and she also repeated his action, but he refused. "Sorry, Tai, please, I am also having. You can get angry as much as you want, but please, after we both have food, please." He was angry, but then how can he refuse his Wayan who is feeding him? He can be hurt and angry with love, but then again his love for her is more than anything in the world. So open his mouth. They complete their food like this, and then sitting in silent, being Wayan in his lap, finally decided to break the silence. "I am sorry. I know I have made mistake, but listening to all that, I feel insecure. I thought you will not accept our baby because you never thought about going further. So I thought you don't want baby. That's why you don't want me. It's not like my and dad. I don't love you or our baby. It's just that I didn't want rush thing. I just wanted to have a strong emotional bond before being parents. Also, I thought you were not ready, but I do love to have baby." She has not made eye contact with him for the moment he entered. It's not like he didn't notice. He cupped her face and made her look at him and said, "Why are you not looking at me? You will think of me as a bad girl. I know. I have listened people saying that girl should not listen someone personal conversation. This is bad." "Which fool said this, baby? You can be. They were talking in publicly in that matter, and that's okay. You see what happened because we didn't communicate openly. I thought you were not ready, so I didn't take your opinion, and you thought that I don't love our baby and asked for divorce. This is not only your mistake but mine also. I understand. I will not repeat my mistake for now on. If there is anything, I will come to you and will ask you. You don't need to feel insecure, as I have already said to you. That is not only love but surely a way to show your love. Now that's okay." She looked down, nodded as yes, but then remembered something and looked at him and asked, "Are you still angry for what you have felt?" "I am not, because we both are equally wrong, but for that divorce topic I am surely. Can't you forgive me?" "Not this soon. It's not that I am angry, but you see I am hurt, and it's hurt a lot here," he said while pointing at his heart. She pouted at him and then opened his shirt button. He held her hand and said, "Well, what are you doing?" She didn't listen to him and moved his shirt a little and kissed his heart and then smiled looking at him and said, Look, I have kissed you. Now you must not feel hurt. Should I give you one more? Then you will feel better. He chuckled at her and then narrowed his eyes and asked, "What do you think of me? Am I who warm you will give a kiss and will say that it won't hurt because you have kissed and will believe it. Think something better, baby." She angry at him and hugged him and said, "What can I do to make up for you? I don't know. You know I am also going to show a lot of tantrums this time because you always do that and I don't get a chance for revenge. Think something good, baby." Wayan saw him who was sleeping. She annoying looking at him and cursed herself for being so stupid that now he is not talking to her. Yes, after their talk, he didn't talk to her and ignored her as much as he could. She tried to talk to him, but he didn't pay any attention. She made a pout and thought, "When you seriously need to think something, otherwise he's not going to forgive you. I seriously need to do something." But in the morning she went and settled herself beside him, but he didn't pay any attention. She waited for a few minutes and like always he would take her in arms, but he didn't. Having no option, she finally decided to do her on. She moved his hand, which was on his stomach, and lay on his chest. He kept his hand beside him, not hugging her, but she took that hand and wrapped it around her waist. "When I'm sleeping, I know." She took his other hand, which was on his eyes, wrapped that around her, making sure he's completely hugging her. "When I have to work in the morning, I know," she said, smiling, and kissed his chest where his heart is. "When I am angry at you, I know I am not talking to you. I know not talking means no cuddling. I know, but you are still half on me. I know." Receiving only "I know" as the answer, he opened his eyes irritatedly and looked at her, who smiled cheekily at him, knowing that she is doing it directly. He said, "It's useless to tell you something. You won't listen." "I know," she said, and while suppressing her laugh, he shook her head and closed his eyes. Soon night turned into morning. Taehyung opened his eyes and didn't find Wayan at her place. He thought she must be downstairs, so he got up on the bed. Just then, the door of the closet opened. Wayan came out wearing a beautiful dress. He thought that she would come and talk to him just like yesterday and try to pacify him. But what happened next left him confused. She completely ignored his presence and went downstairs. This was shocking him. Until yesterday, she was roaming around him, cuddling him forcefully. Now suddenly she paid no attention to him, as if he was not even present in the room. Didn't she want forgiveness? Till yesterday she was cuddling me forcefully. Now didn't even look at me. Be aware, you don't know what is cooking inside her little brain. He shook his head and went to get ready, as he has some work in the office which he need to complete. That's why he is going to office today. Wayan came downstairs and saw Yunshi were sitting at the table for breakfast. She went toward her and hugged her. Just then Taehyung also came downstairs and sat on the chair. "Oh, wow, give me. I am already hungry and getting late." Yunshi nodded and started serving her. With every second, Taehyung doubted on her increase. He knew that his little wife is up to something, but he didn't know what was. He also started serve for himself breakfast and started having it while looking at her, who was enjoying her food without looking at him. He couldn't have more patience, so he was about to ask why she was behaving like this suddenly. Until yesterday, she was roaming around. But before that, Jimin came and took a seat beside Wayan and said something in her ear, and her face lit up. She jumped into her place and side hugged him. Taehyung looked at them, narrowed his eyes, but what she did next only added to his anger and jealousy. Thank you so much, Jimin. You are the best. I love you. He said, getting up from his seat and getting angry at her. What? Wayan and Jimin both asked at the same time, rolling their eyes. Why are you saying I love you to him? He said, getting offended. He is already very confused with her behavior from morning. Now this is just making him more angry because I love him, she said if she was done. He came toward her and pulled her from Jimin and said, you can't say him I love you, nor can you hug him and stay away. But Jimin also pulled her toward him and said, she can hug me and you can't stop her, and about that, I love you. Sweetie, I love you too. He said, sweetie, I love you toward looking at her with a smile. No, she can't, and also stay away from my wife, he said, but Jimin and Wayan ignored him as if they were listening. So sweetie, don't you want to go? Your car is ready waiting for outside with the driver, he said to her, making sure that he sounded extra sweet. I just can't believe that you are flirting with my wife in front of me, he said, suffocating. Wayan turned toward him and said, so Mr. came by and went out. And he kept looking at her wide eyes, not knowing what exactly happened. Jimin suppressed his laugh, looking at Taehyung and said, come on Taehyung, you want to behave like an angry bird, then be one, but let my sweetie enjoy her vacation. Taehyung got angry and threw a spoon on the plate and went to the office in anger. Once he left him, she asked, honey, why are both of you troubling him? Come on baby, we are just having a little fun. But what is she going to do? Sorry my love, my lips are sealed. I can't say, but I can say he's going to enjoy it a lot, he said while chuckling. Taehyung entered his cabin, being frustrated. The only thought that is roaming in his mind is about her, whose behavior is suddenly changed in the morning, and to add fire into her talk with Jimin. How she, without even informing him, this is making him way more angry. His thought came stopped when someone knocked on the door. He gave permission to the person to enter. June, who worked as his assistant, he entered the cabin, but behind him someone else also entered who caught his eyes. He looked at her and narrowed his eyes. Just then June said, sir, she's Miss Wayan. Actually, sometime before, Jimin sir called and said that his sister will come here. Actually, he wants her to learn business from you. Wayan looked at Taehyung, making innocent eyes, and tried to hold her laughter. He looked at June and said, if she is your Jimin sir's sister, then why didn't he call me directly? And I am not free to teach people. I have a lot of work to do, rather than making false injunction. I don't know, sir. He just asked me to lead her here. Whenever she came, June said, being confused, not knowing what was happening. He signed and looked at her and asked, what are you doing here? Go back, Wayan. I have a lot of work. I am here to learn things from you. Tell me who can teach me better than you. Wayan, I am really not in the mood. Please, please, Tae. If you will teach me, I will able to learn properly. Why are you being so cruel? I will do whatever you will ask. She said, being extra sweet. All this June is looking at them confused, not knowing who the girl is. If his boss didn't like her, why he's arguing with her but not being harsh? Because he has seen his boss with other girls who try to come near him without his permission, he will make sure that girl will never be able to even come near the building next time. Then why he is not doing the same with her? Fine, Miss Wayan, if you really want this, then let's get started with work. All right. Yes, let's start. But Taehyung, it's not Miss Wayan, it's Mrs. Kim Wayan, she said with a smile. June's eyes went wide, realizing why his boss was not saying anything. Because she is his wife, whom they got to know from main office but never saw. Fine, Miss Kim Wayan, get me a cup of coffee. She smiled widely and said, it's okay, Tae, saying he was about to move when Taehyung said, Mrs. Kim Wayan, you are here to learn, right? Then first learn professionalism. You shouldn't call your boss with his name. Call me sir. He said, thinking that if he behave a little rudely, she will leave. But she didn't care and said, okay sir. She tried hard to make him irritated and went out to get coffee for him. Once she left, he shook his head and said, June, make sure she is comfortable here and be with her all the time, and also make sure nobody will dare to trouble her. Look after her properly. June looked at him confused. Just before a few minutes he was being rude with her, and now on she left he was asking her to care for her. He looked at June and said, don't get confused, June. I am little angry with her and she is here to make up to me. I am angry with her, but that doesn't mean that I don't love her or care for her. So make sure she is okay. June smiled at his boss' behavior, how he is angry but still care for her, and went behind her. He went to her, who was carrying a cup of coffee. Ma'am, let me help you. It's okay, but tell me what he said to you. Nothing. Oh, come on, he must have told you to take care of me. Tell me, otherwise why are you here? I know he can be angry but always care for me. June smiled at the understanding between his boss and his wife. Soon they reached to his cabin and said, Sir, your coffee. He looked at cup which has a note, and the word of note are, please, please, Tae, forgive me. I won't repeat my mistake. I will never think about divorce in my whole life. Please forgive me. He took a cup and took a note from it and put that in the pocket of his trouser. All this while he has to bite his inner cheek to prevent himself from smiling. He composed himself and said, June, give her the financial report of the last paper. Mrs. Kim, study that report properly and give me a summary of your understanding about it. He said, privately called her Mrs. Kim as for the first time. She introduced herself as Miss Kim Wayan, and he is really liking that name. She smiled at him, knowing that how much he is liking but won't admit it. She was about to move but stopped hearing his voice. Mrs. Kim Wayan, where are you going? Outside. No need, you will sit here and do your work here only and won't leave this cabin without my permission. She smiled as her plan was successful. She knew at home he will ignore her, knowing that there is so many people who will care for him. But here he won't let her go out of his sight. He won't trust anyone when it's come to her, so she will able to work with him. It's been a 2 hours, then Wayan is continuously working. Tiredness was visible in her face. All this time he kept taking her class. He signed knowing she won't give up this. He want her to get a break, so he went to her and take a file from her hand. Leave this all work, no need to do anymore, he sat beside her. She stood up and sat on his lap, his breath stuck on his throat, looking at her action while both of them looking into each other's eyes. She looked into his eyes and circled her arms around his neck and said, I know that I made a mistake. I know what I did was completely wrong. I shouldn't have made any assumption without talking with you. But please try to think from my perspective also. I won't repeat my mistake. Please forget my mistake. He looked at her and nodded his head and said, I am already forgive you, Wayan.